LSU defensive coordinator Blake Baker updates Harold Perkins injury progress. You're going to want to hear this. It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making this your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you so much for that. We sincerely appreciate it. A ton to get to in today's episode, including Les Miles' lawsuit against LSU being dismissed. I have a take on this that might surprise you. We will preview LSU and Mississippi State game one of that series at the box starting here on Thursday. But Tigers are back on the practice field on Thursday. And after practice, Blake Baker is going to meet with reporters. Well, the day before that, on Wednesday morning, Blake Baker was a guest on Off the Bench with Jacob Hester and T-Bob Abraham. Now, candidly, T-Bob was out with the flu, so Jacob Hester handled the interview solo. But the LSU defensive coordinator gave an interview, about 15 minutes or so, chatting with the former Tiger great Jacob Hester. And part of the conversation, naturally, when you're talking to not only the defensive coordinator, but also the linebackers coach, is going to be about, well, the linebackers, and in particular, one very key linebacker in Harold Perkins, who played just 4 games for the Tigers a season ago before tearing his ACL against UCLA and has been recovering ever since. Well, we have, candidly, in our opportunity as the media to go watch spring, have seen Harold Perkins out there. He's in street clothes. He's got a brace on that knee still as he's recovering from the torn ACL, but moving around better, as is obvious, and as we've seen in some of the videos and things posted on social media. But Blake Baker gave an interesting update on Harold Perkins. I think you're going to like what he had to say.
Man, Perk is extremely locked in. You know, and I said this when it happened, and I didn't mean it in a negative light, but in some ways, you know, being hurt might have been the best thing that ever happened to him. Kind of just sit back, you know, let the game unfold from a mental standpoint in front of him. But the attention to detail, the work that he's putting in with Jack Marucci downstairs with the VR, obviously not being able to get the physical reps on the field, he could easily, you know, take it easy and just come to the hour film meeting that we do every single day and that be it. But he's going above and beyond and answering questions, and he's extremely locked in. So I think he's gonna have a big year next year, you know. And I don't want to put, I think part of the problem, in my opinion, has been the expectation that's been put on him. And obviously with a player that talent and that caliber, you know, we still got to remember that he's, you know, 20 years old or whatever he is. So, but I do think he's going to have an outstanding season. I think he's really focused. And I think between him and West and Devon and Witt, and some of these, you know, Ty Singletons coming along, and then we get 3 more freshmen, I think they're all gonna complement each other really, really well. So I don't think the onus is going to be on, here's Harold Perkins, he's the star of the defense. I think we have a lot of really, really good players in that room that feed off of each other, make each other better.
There are 3 things in that soundbite that stood out to me, and that soundbite, by the way, ran about a minute and a half. Blake Baker's not absolutely known for being super long-winded, but that's a soundbite that ran a minute and 32 seconds. A minute 32. And boy, did he have a lot to say. First of all, he talked about, you know, and let's be very clear. There's no negativity there intended by saying, you know, the injury was the best thing to happen for him. He was very clear in clarifying that, but saying, like, it's sort of the blessing in disguise. Nobody wants to see anybody get injured, but that injury forced Harold Perkins to go sit and watch the game unfold. How many times do we hear this about quarterbacks that maybe you're swimming in it, fighting a little bit, and they get pulled out of the game, and it's like, hey, just go stand on the sideline and watch the game. Let it slow down. Take a breath. Let it slow down a little bit and watch what's unfolding. It felt a lot like that's what Blake Baker was saying right there. Harold Perkins removing himself from the fire, from the scrum, allowed him to sit back and watch and maybe process a little better. I loved the part he talked about VR. Did you catch that? So VR, of course, is virtual reality. So what he's saying is, with Jack Marucci, who's the head of athletic training and performance, what Baker's saying there is, look, Harold can't go get these reps on the field. So look, we have 1 hour a day film study, and he could come to that and then bounce, and that's it. But he ain't just doing the 1 hour film study. He's doing all this VR training. So effectively, they're simulating the game and game scenarios for Harold through virtual reality that he can't get on the field. Remember, Jaden Daniels did this a lot before his final season. He talked openly about that. They have that simulation room in football ops where he could stand in there and they could simulate an entire game scenario for him. So mentally, you're getting those reps in your brain, in your mind's eye. You're getting those reps, even if physically you aren't, which is an incredible resource to have, of course, and a great help. Also speaks to the commitment Harold Perkins has of getting better, even if he can't be on the field. Now, remember also, this is his draft year. So you're talking about a dude who's got 1 year left and a ton still to prove, not only that he's healthy, but he can be productive at multiple spots. So it's a massive opportunity for Harold Perkins, and you love to see that buy-in, that commitment. And then the third part of that soundbite from Blake Baker was, because you got depth at that linebacker room right now, you're probably not just going to have all these incredible expectations. Listen, Harold Perkins just exploded onto the scene as a freshman. Really starting with that Ole Miss game when he changed the game back in 2022. And he ended up with 13 TFLs and 7.5 sacks and 4 forced fumbles and a couple of pass breakups and an interception and 3 passes deflected. It was just awesome, right? Well, the question becomes, what do you do for an encore? Well, he goes out the next year and in 1 fewer game has the same number of TFLs, a couple of fewer sacks, 1 fewer forced fumble, 3 more pass breakups. He has a pick, double the amount of passes defense. He was like a really productive player in 2023, but the defense as a whole was so bad that largely what Perkins did went unnoticed. And so there was this great expectation for him in 2024, and he tears his ACL just 4 games into the season. So we never got to see it, but as a result, what you saw was other guys step up. Whit Weeks led the team with 120 tackles. Greg Penn was second with 84. You go down the list and you realize, man, Devon Keys had 31 tackles. And after that, the next top linebacker was West Weeks with 16 and Perkins was 16. Well, now you look at this room where, Greg Penn's gone, but Whit Weeks is back. And West Weeks is back. And Devon Keys is taking a next step. And Tylen Singleton, you're going to grow into it. And you're going to bring in 3 freshmen, including Zach Weeks, the youngest Weeks brother. And then also, of course, Perkins returns, but is going to play the star position. And because he's going to be in a more natural fit at the star, you're not going to ask him to play off the ball and get caught up in the scrum, trying to shed blocks from 320-pound interior offensive linemen. You're going to let him go do what he does best, which is play in space, run sideline to sideline, blitz, tackle in space, cover, turn and run when you got to. Go be an athlete. Be the queen piece on the chessboard that can move in any direction. That's when Harold Perkins is at his best. And it's pretty clear that's what they're going to allow him to do this year, because they don't need him to do more, because you went and added 3 transfer defensive ends who can all rush the passer. And you've got Gabe Relaford, and you've got guys like Kalaj Cobbins, and you've got Whit Weeks. Oh, and then you also have Harold Perkins. So what happens when the entire offense isn't focused solely on number 7? It's going to free up 7 to do even more, which should make for a really fun year. Loved hearing that from Blake Baker. Tigers are back on the practice field on Thursday. Blake Baker meets with reporters afterwards, and whatever he says of note will certainly pass along to you. But you better believe, for the linebacker coach in year 2 as the defensive coordinator and getting that room to look more like what he wants, it's pretty exciting to see what it could be. And Harold Perkins is going to be a major part of that coming off of injury. Okay, it is Locked on LSU, your team every day. We will get to an LSU Mississippi State baseball preview here in just a quick second, but the Les Miles lawsuit against LSU and others has been dismissed, and I have some thoughts on it. We'll get to that next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, shopping online, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. They also offer easy collaboration. Managing your money with your partner, for example, is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts. You can set goals. You can stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. So Les Miles had his lawsuit dismissed on Monday by a judge in Baton Rouge. And if you're not familiar, back in September, Les Miles, or Miles' attorney, filed a lawsuit on behalf of the former LSU coach against not only LSU, but also the NCAA and the National Football Foundation. And at issue here are the 37 wins from Les Miles' tenure at LSU that were vacated when the Vidal-Alexander ruling came down, which made him effectively ineligible for the College Football Hall of Fame. The judge, Ronald Johnson, issued the ruling to dismiss Miles' lawsuit. Miles' attorney said they are considering an appeal. So if you're not familiar, I'll give you the very abbreviated Cliff's Notes, and I want to give you an opinion on what I think is happening, what should happen here. So go back in time, and you'll remember Vidal-Alexander, who was a great offensive lineman at LSU. Well, his father was paid $180,000 for what amounted to a no-show job by an LSU booster. And as a result, the NCAA dragged on this lawsuit forever. This is the thing that they held over LSU's head, basically as leverage to get their pound of flesh with Will Wade. And in the end, LSU vacated some wins. They had the bowl ban in 2020, and they maybe lost a couple of scholarships, which never really amounted to anything. So they got a slap on the wrist. Well, for Les Miles, what's at issue here is legacy. And his attorney argued that Les never got to argue his case in the whole thing, that LSU just accepted these penalties to close the book on this punishment and this case with LSU and the NCAA and to move on. And they were glad to accept vacated wins and a bowl ban and some stupid stuff like that. Nothing more serious. But for Les Miles, it was very serious because those 37 vacated wins knocked him below the threshold of the winning percentage required for election to the College Football Hall of Fame. So with the 37 vacated wins, Miles' career record is 108-73. That's a 597 winning percentage. The minimum threshold is 600. Without the vacated wins, Miles was well within the range at 665 for his entire career. That's Oklahoma State, LSU, and, of course, Kansas. Now, I am not here to litigate what happened with Les Miles and why he was fired at Kansas. Remember, there was an investigation at LSU where there was an investigation that deemed that Miles had acted inappropriately with a student worker during his time at LSU. That was apparently enough to justify Kansas firing him. So the results of an investigation from his time at LSU netted Kansas firing Les Miles. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's legitimate. Miles denies those claims. The claims are out there. I don't know, and I'm not here to litigate it. I don't know any more than anyone else with respect to that whole situation. And I honestly don't think it's relevant at all with respect to Les Miles in the College Football Hall of Fame. So let me start by saying this. There is no argument against Les Miles as a worthy College Football Hall of Fame candidate. Okay? You can say whatever you want. You can talk about his idiosyncrasies, his weird syntax, wearing the hat high atop his head. You can talk about the general lack of passing game in the offense, all that sort of stuff. And none of that matters because Les Miles won a national championship, played for another national championship, won 2 SEC titles, played for a 3rd SEC title, and did all of this, by the way, for more than a decade in the same division as literally the greatest coach of all time. And but for Nick Saban getting a mulligan he did not deserve in 2011, Les Miles would have won not 1, but 2 national championships. And in 2011, that would have been the most dominant team we would have ever seen up until 2019 when Joe Burrow and those Tigers became the greatest team college football had ever seen. The bottom line is Les Miles is a college football Hall of Fame coach. He is 100% worthy. He should be on merit in the College Football Hall of Fame. Again, say whatever you want about the weird syntax, about the luck against Tennessee in 2010, the clock at game in 2009. Every coach has blemishes on their record. No coach is infallible. Les Miles' record over his tenure at 3 different schools warrants Hall of Fame induction. Okay? Period. Not debatable. Not debatable. He is a College Football Hall of Famer on merit on his record. It is foolish that during his tenure, a booster organized a no-show job for a player's parent that paid $180K, and that's the thing that cost Les Miles the College Football Hall of Fame, especially now considering all of that is legal. It's like throwing someone in prison for 20 years because they sold weed 20 years ago, when half the states in America have legalized marijuana. The punishment doesn't fit the crime. It's flatly stupid to say that guy can't go in the College Football Hall of Fame because a booster organized a no-show job for a player's parent more than a decade ago. It's absurd. But here's the problem I have with the way Les Miles is going about doing this. He's fighting this battle in the wrong court. He doesn't need to be fighting it in a court of law. He needs to be fighting it in the court of public opinion. If Les Miles were to get a PR firm and someone to help him organize a message and a rallying cry behind how ridiculous it is that a guy who was one of the preeminent characters and figures in college football, the purple pullover, the tall white hat, the grass eating, the funny syntax, the guy was a character in college football and one that was beloved. And he can regain a lot of that adulation with the right public relations approach. The wrong thing to do is to sue LSU and the NCAA and the National Football Foundation. That's not going to win you any points in public court of opinion. And remember, we saw Reggie Bush do this. Reggie Bush losing his Heisman because some booster gave him and his family a house in San Diego while he played. Everyone's like, are you kidding me? Reggie Bush was awesome. He made a ton of money for USC, and he was the best player we ever saw at the time. And yeah, he deserved the Heisman. The fact that they took it away was dumb. And it was dumb. Just like Les Miles vacating these wins and costing him a chance at the Hall of Fame is dumb. And what happened? The court of public opinion and the groundswell grew so much that ultimately the Heisman Trust gave Reggie Bush his Heisman back, which is, of course, the right thing to do. And it would be right to elect Les Miles to the College Football Hall of Fame as well. And I will point as well, also, as precedent, that roughly 15%, this is from the National Football Foundation, 15% of the College Football Hall of Fame electees have come with exceptions. 15%, that's more than 1 out of 10 electees have had exceptions to their bylaws. So yes, an exception should be made here, whether the NCAA wants to reinstate those wins or not. Les Miles should be in the College Football Hall of Fame, but the wrong way to go about doing it is suing. Les Miles is fighting this in the wrong court. It shouldn't be in a court of law. It should be in a court of public opinion. And yes, my hope is that Les Miles does go in the College Football Hall of Fame one day, because he's certainly a worthy addition to the College Football Hall of Fame. We'll keep you posted as that develops. LSU opens up its weekend series against Mississippi State, Thursday, Friday, Saturday series at the Box. We'll give you a preview next. Locked in LSU, your team every day. We're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear, wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Baseball Tigers open up a 3-game weekend series against Mississippi State at the Box, a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. And it's interesting because Mississippi State and Coach Chris Lamone has thrown a little bit of a curveball, pun very much intended here, at LSU. So everything has moved up a day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And LSU is going to stick with its rotation. They're going to throw Cade Anderson on Thursday, Anthony Ianson on Friday, Chase Shores on Saturday. So no changes. Mississippi State, however, is going to pitch off. So Pico Cone, the senior lefty, has been their Friday night guy. He's 4-0 with the 2.52 ERA. He's been very good. 53 strikeouts, just 7 walks. So 53 strikeouts in 35 and 2/3 innings pitched. Again, he's been a very good Friday night guy. But after Pico Cone, the senior lefty, it's really been a little bit of a hodgepodge. So a week ago, the number 2 guy, the game 2 guy was Ben Davis, a reliever. Ben Davis allowed 7 runs in just 1 inning. He pitched the first inning. That was it against Oklahoma. Then Evan Sierra came in and went 3 innings after that. So Chris Lamonis is making a change. Evan Sierra, who pitched in relief in game 2 last weekend, is going to start game 1 this weekend. So it'll be Cade Anderson against Evan Sierra on Thursday, which gives a massive advantage to LSU in this ballgame. Game 2 will be Ianson against Pico Cone. So they're going to keep Pico Cone on his regular rest on Friday. And then game 3 will be Chase Shores against senior Carson Legion. So Carson Legion's another very good, experienced Mississippi State pitcher who's a senior, who's been around for a long time. And when you look at what they did last week in game 3, it was Carson Legion who went 5 innings, allowed 5 runs on 4 hits. So they're pitching off to make sure that they keep, Pico Cone on his regular rest on Friday. Legion, who was the Sunday guy, will go Saturday in game 2. And Sierra, who pitched in relief in game 2, will go game 1. You got that? So it'll be Anderson against Sierra, Ianson against Cone, Shores against Legion. Now, LSU has a massive advantage in game 1. Evan Sierra is a reliever. He's not expected to go deep into the ball game. He gave 3 innings of relief last week, and he's going against Cade Anderson, who will be on 1 day shorter rest, but has been a legit stud for LSU so far this season. 5-0, a 2.65 ERA, 56 strikeouts to just 8 walks and 34 innings pitched. He's going against Evan Sierra. But that flips in game 2. Now, Pico Cone's 4-0. Ianson's 3-0 on the season, but he's got an ERA north of 4, and we know at times for Ianson, it's just been ineffective. Now, the perception is that Ianson's walk numbers have been high. His command's been off, but they haven't been. Ianson's got 46 strikeouts and just 8 walks, the same number of walks as Cade Anderson in just 2 fewer innings. So Ianson has been effective, but not efficient. It'll be interesting to see if he can go deeper, but a big advantage on the bump game 2 for Mississippi State. Then game 3, you got a sophomore righty in Chase Shores who has a super high ceiling against a veteran righty, senior Carson Legion, who isn't going to be necessarily the effective pitcher that Shores is, meaning the talent that Shores is, but he has been effective and has thrown a lot of innings. Now, a couple of other things worth keeping an eye on. Mississippi State has just not been very good. They're 1-5 in the conference. They were swept at home in the opening weekend against Texas. And then last week they went to Oklahoma and they went 1-2 in that series against the Sooners. So they won game 1 against Oklahoma and then lost behind Pico Cone. They won Friday behind Pico Cone 2-1, and then lost games 2 and 3, 13-11, and then 7-3. Ben Sanders threw on in game 2. He's not going to start game 2. That'll be Pico Cone as they pitch off, and then they lost 7-3 in game 3 behind Carson Legion. Mississippi State offensively relies very much on the homer. They hit 314 as a team, but 38 homers so far on the season is something worth keeping an eye on. They rely very much on the long ball. Now, it's also interesting to keep an eye because there's a couple of players for Mississippi State that are going to be interesting to watch in this series. So their third baseman, Ace Reese, last week against Oklahoma, had a leg injury and was quite literally hobbling around. Now, he is a big bopper in this lineup. He's a transfer from the University of Houston. He's one worth watching, but how healthy is Ace Reese? Is he ready to go? Ross Highfill is their catcher, and he is an elite defensive catcher. But Ross Highfill last week took a ball off the face in that first game, or in the second game, and then didn't catch the rest of the weekend. So he was replaced by Joe Powell. Joe Powell is not nearly the defensive catcher that Highfill is. So if Highfill can't catch against LSU, that is a major advantage for the Tigers, and you better believe the running game will be far more active if it's Powell instead of Highfill. So something else worth keeping an eye on whenever lineups are posted and as this weekend goes along. Listen, this is a Mississippi State offense that features Noah Sullivan, their DH, who's hitting .395. We talked about Ace Reese, who leads the team in doubles, homers, and RBI. But again, it's like Kirk Gibson, like quite literally hobbling around out there playing third base and just hobbling around the bases. So is Ace Reese good to go is something worth keeping an eye on. But by and large, we're going to have to watch this LSU offense. The LSU offense against this Mississippi State pitching staff, which is choosing to pitch off, you have got to win game 1. You're sticking with Cade Anderson. They're pitching off in game 1. You have got to win game 1. You got to win game 1 at home and then find a way to split the next 2 and take this series. Remember, if your goal is 20-10 in the conference, 20-10 locks you up a national seed for certain. That means you got to win on average 2 a weekend. You've done that so far. You swept Missouri. You lost the series at Texas, but won 1. So you're 4-2 through 2 weeks. You're pacing exactly. Go win this series at home against Mississippi State. Love to give yourself a cushion with a sweep, but it starts by getting game 1. You have the most massive advantage on the mound in this series is Thursday in game 1. You got to find a way to go get it. One other thing I'll remind you is that Mississippi State under Chris Lemonis has had a lot of success against Jay Johnson. State leads the overall series, although LSU has won 13 of the last 17 regular season series. State has won 2 series in a row against LSU. They won 2 of 3 last year in Baton Rouge and 2 of 3 in Starkville in 2024. So, but prior to that, LSU had won 9 straight series over Mississippi State from 2007 through 2015, but they've split their last 8 series meetings from 2016 to 2024. They didn't play in 2020 in the COVID year, of course. So the bottom line is Chris Lemonis is one of only a couple of coaches in the SEC that has a winning record against Jay Johnson. You got to change that this weekend and find a way to go scratch out a series win at home against an inferior team. We'll see if the Tigers can do it. Hey, let me remind you that we will be here for postgame. So as soon as the game goes final on Thursday, we'll be live on the Locked On LSU YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed on YouTube, please do hit the bell so you're notified we post a video or go live. And if you can't catch us live, be sure to catch us on demand on podcast or on YouTube. And of course, always, thanks for making us your first listen. And for your second listen, maybe check out Locked On College Basketball. Be the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hey, thanks so much for being with us here. Please subscribe and let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.